Welcome back to Undefendable. We are going to be going over every single hero, doing a quick play like a pro guide for the Season 2 Battle Chest. That is going to include the Gunslinger, the Samurai, the Tactician, the Huntress, the Cursed Pirate, the Artificer, Seraph, and Vampire Lord. So if you're looking for these heroes and you're looking for a guide on how to play them, you can hit the chapters below or stay tuned and watch some stuff. Appreciate it. Welcome back to Undefendable. We're going to be hopping into a play like a pro guide for the Huntress. The Huntress is one of the hardest heroes in Dice Throne to master. She trades damage and control for the strongest defense in the game via Naira. Naira, effectively, this is giving you a second life bar, a second health bar. If you win with Huntress, it's because you outlast, not outdamage. Reviewing her leaflet, we have Naira, which is her companion, and Naira has a lot of unique mechanics, but I'll just read these off to you really quickly. If you're being attacked while Naira is active, you may choose to pass the full amount of this damage to Naira, unless the opponent is attacking with their ultimate ability. If Naira receives damage, you may still use your defensive abilities. If Naira is active and your offensive roll phase results in an attack, increase that damage by 2. If Naira is active during your offensive roll phase, you may deal 1 damage to her and then re-roll 1 die. This may only be done once per turn. Also, Naira can go up to 7 health, just to note that as well. And ultimately, when Naira dies, you would flip her over to here and be at 0. And then during your upkeep phase, if your dial reads 5, you flip Naira back over to active. Otherwise, each turn you would heal her up to 1 to get her back up to 5 and then flip. We go down, we have Naira's Bond. This is a good way to split damage between Huntress and Naira. So you can distribute damage received between Huntress and Naira, or you can spend it at any time to heal Naira too. And then bleed. You can inflict bleed on your opponent to deal 1 damage to them. They would roll during their upkeep. If they roll a 5 or a 6, they remove the token. If they do not, they would take a damage. Her dice are something to talk about. They're a bit unique. You have 2 spears, 2 claws, bonded soul, and saber tooth for her 6, which makes some of her roll objectives a little bit tricky. So that is something to keep in mind. It's not a 1-1-1-2-2-3. It's a 1-1-2-2-3-4 or an A-A-B-B-C-D. So her roll objectives can be a little bit unique. Going over the Huntress's abilities, you have Animalistic for just defendable damage, 3, 4, 5. Again, all of this, something to consider, is if Naira is active, you're adding 2 damage, right? Adding 2 damage to all of these attacks. So you want to make sure that during your offensive roll phase, Naira is active. And that's really the balance game you're trying to do, is keeping Naira up while not taking a ton of damage, while healing her, while dealing damage back and getting the benefit from it, while still staying alive and keeping Naira alive. Or if Naira does die, making sure that she can, be reactivated during that next upkeep, or reactivated really quickly. Resuscitate, that's where you gain that Naira's Bond to either distribute damage or heal Naira, and then heal Naira 3. Savage is a pretty standard attack for Huntress, deal 4 and then roll 1 to do the additional benefits. Feral Instincts is her access, or her slightly easier access to undefendable damage, which is gain Naira's Bond and then deal 2 undefendable. One thing to note again, this is 4 undefendable if Naira is active. You have her small and large straights. Predatory Advance, which is a relatively hard objective to roll. You really aren't going to do this unless you roll it naturally. Heal Naira 1, and then deal 5 damage, 5 to 7. Feral for her mini ult with 5 undefendable and healing Naira. Maternal Bond, which is dealing damage on a spear, healing Naira on the bonded soul, and then if Naira is active, you can hit back with that claw for 2 additional damage. And then the Huntress's Jungle Fury Ultimate, gain a bond, inflict 2 bleed, and deal 12. Going over Huntress's cards, she doesn't really have a lot of just unique cards, but they're all relatively good. I would say out of these, Savage Slash likely has the least impact. It's low impact, but it is cheap to play for 1 CP, so use it if you have nothing better. Her attack modifiers are both really good. You're going to use these every single time that you get them. They're both 0 CP as well. One thing to note is the Huntress does not generate CP. So make sure when you're upgrading, she doesn't have a lot of CP. She doesn't generate a lot of CP, but she does have a lot of upgrades. And a lot of upgrades are auto cells so that CP doesn't become an issue. So these 4 are going to be really strong, and all of these are relatively low CP. Blood Bond is good when Naira's at low health, and then Resilience is a really nice way to surprise bond, get the Naira's bond usage out quickly or in an emergency for Naira to recover. As for Huntress's upgrades, again, some of these are going to be auto cells because you're just going to need the CP. What I will always recommend upgrading is going to be your Savage. This is worth it. It makes Savage a lot safer with Hunt being activated as well. Definitely want to upgrade this, and then your defense. She has one of the best defenses in the game if you can upgrade it, so you will always upgrade Savage and her defense. Everything else is relatively situational, but most are going to be a trap. Feral Instincts is okay, but it's going to be situational if you're going up against an opponent with a really strong defense, maybe. But I would say Resuscitate, Predatory Advance, Feral, and Animalistic are all going to be auto cells. So the general game plan for Huntress is you're going to want to use Naira as aggressively as possible to get her HP down to 1 or 2 as much as possible, right? You really want Naira functioning around 1 or 2 health most of the game, because this is going to give you the maximum tank value. If Naira's at 1 health and someone swings at you with 13 damage, you can just say, sure, Naira's going to take it. She takes 1, flips over, and dies, but the excess damage does not go to Huntress. So you're really trying to keep her functioning around 1 or 2 health and active, so your attacks are going to get buffed, but you're also going to have this as an option to tank a lot of damage. So keeping her around 1 or 2 is going to be really good. And then at 2 HP, this is where you can ping her if you need to reroll on your next turn. So that's why the 1 or 2 is going to be really, really important for Naira. I would say ideally 2, because you can ping her to reroll, but 1 is also really good for maximum tank value. When you get Naira's bonds, you want to spend them quickly. Typically, you're going to want to heal Naira in your main phase if you are 5 or less health, right? So if you're at 5, you would use Naira's bond, you'd go up to 7. That's her max health. If you're at 6 or 7, you would actually, that's when you would start using Naira's bond to split the damage. So if someone swings at you for 9, you could have her take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the other 4 would go to you in this scenario with Naira's bond, right? So that's how you're going to want to use Naira's bond to its maximum efficiency. Offensive priorities, you're going to want to use Savage when you're versing normal defenses, so opponents that don't have wildly strong defenses. And then you want to use Feral Instincts when you're versing dangerous defenses and you need undefendable damage. And then Predatory Advance is really just if your dice are just being awkward, right? If you're rolling Claws and you're not rolling the Sabertooth, or if you're rolling Bonds and Claws and not quite getting the third Spear, this is where you're going to use Predatory Advance if these two are just kind of being awkward and not cooperating. Resuscitate is really just if you're just absolutely whiffing and nothing else is available, you're going to want to go with Resuscitate. Or if Naira is down and you need to get Naira's bond and heal Naira. So if she's down at 0 and you hit a Resuscitate, you can heal her 3, get Naira's bond, and then heal her 2, and try and get her active that next turn to flip her over so that you can get max value. A few last tips for Huntress. I would say don't fight bad rolls. Take what the dice give you. Her dice are unforgiving, so a lot of times that first roll is going to be predictive of what you want to chase. So in this scenario, obviously we're not going to chase Resuscitate. We potentially have the small straight here. But I wouldn't go chasing a 6 to get Savage here. I'd probably fall back to Feral Instincts depending on my opponent's defense, or I would take the 3, 4, 5 and then go for the small straight. And now you can see we're kind of in a predicament here because the dice were not cooperative. And we just, right there, that's a scenario where it's like, oh, well, crap, we tried to play it safe. I guess I'll take Resuscitate because I don't have another option based on the rules. So, again, push for Savage against Normal D, Feral Instincts against Undefendable. Another thing to consider here is, in this situation, I would ping Naira 1 because a lot of times Naira taking 1 HP is usually worth the reroll, and I would reroll this, and we didn't get the straight, but it does give us that access to remember if the dice are just not cooperating, a lot of times the value you get from pinging Naira for 1 is worth the reroll. Another tip would be letting Naira go down can be correct if it blocks 11 plus damage. That is usually when I will let Naira go down. If it's going to be like 8 damage, I'm not going to have Naira tank this 8 damage and then have to like use my turns to get her back up. But if I'm getting hit for 10 plus or 11 plus damage, that is where I'm going to sacrifice Naira. Last tip I would say is you win by dragging the game long and exhausting on your opponent. If you can get Naira to tank damage, get her back up, upgrade your defense, hopefully you find it, it is going to be a long, grindy, draggy game, and your opponent's going to be exhausted by the end of it. But if you're trying to play Huntress as an aggressive, I'm going to poke you and kill you quickly, that is not Huntress's game plan. It is a drag out, stabby, brawl, bleeds, tanking a lot of damage, dispersing damage effectively across Naira and Huntress. As for her matchups, she is going to be strong against burst and rushdown heroes. So characters that like hate long games as well. So examples like Barbarian. Cursed Pirate hates long games because then Cursed Pirate's going to have to flip at some point. Even like characters like Jean Grey, she could be really strong into. But Huntress is going to, again, be good against burst and rushdown heroes. She is going to be weak against consistent undefendable heroes because then you won't... Because remember, you can do Naira and your defense. So if Naira's at 1 and they hit you for 11, you can roll your defense here. For example, if I upgraded it, I can roll my defense, and then I would be healing Naira for 2, and then I would be hitting back for 3, and then Naira could just take all of that damage and flip, and then I'd be fine, right? So that is something to consider is consistent undefendable damage. You don't get to roll your defense, which is tough. And then late game scaling heroes, Huntress is also going to be weak against. So imagine like Shadow Thief there, or consistent undefendable damage would be someone like Ninja is a good example. So she does have really, really strong matchups, but she's also going to be really weak into a lot of matchups as well. So my final take, Huntress is going to win games other heroes can't by refusing to die. If you manage Naira well, you force opponents into mistakes, fatigue, and bad decisions. Really high skill ceiling, extremely punishing if you misplay, but if you have the right hands, and if she's piloted in the right hands, she is a nightmare to kill and really, really fun. So let's do a couple of roll examples. Let's say this is my first roll. Again, I want to try and play smart here, right? So in this scenario, this is a pretty awkward roll based on what we're looking for. I would even potentially keep the 2-3 and then roll this back. Okay, now we're going to push for Savage because we already have Hunt from the upgrade. And then we would go with Savage. We also have, so we would go with Savage where we would roll 1 die. If Naira up, we would deal 5, 6, 7, 8 damage right there. Let's do a second roll attempt. Okay, so this is one where, again, this is a little bit awkward. We got the Sabertooths here, but we also have the Bonded Souls. We only have 1 Spear. So depending on what my opponent's defense is, I may keep a 5 if I want it to be undefendable, or I may keep a 6 and push for Savage or Hunt. And one other option is, depending on my hand, if I have dice mods, I may push here. But this is likely what I would do if I had no dice mods, and then we would go Savage, roll, and we do 5, 6, 7, 8 again if Naira is active. And again, you're not going to be doing big bursty damage because that's not her playstyle. You want to keep Naira up. You want Naira to take some damage. You want her to be at 1 to 2 so that when your opponent tries to hit you for big damage, you can have her tank it, and then you try and resuscitate and get her back up as quickly as possible to continue to tank the game. If you're playing Huntress correctly, you are almost like an 80 health hero if you can get Naira at 5, have her get killed off, big attack, she dies, she comes back up at 5, have her get killed off for another big attack, and then you're just cycling that process back and forth. So that is how you play Huntress. Don't be afraid to like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate you. Welcome back to Undefendable. We are going to be doing Play Like a Pro guide on the Gunslinger. The Gunslinger is the ultimate gambler hero. Imagine Joey from Yu-Gi-Oh! If your dice are hot, you're going to be crushing people. If they're not hot, you are going to get absolutely trampled. She's balanced across the board, but her power really swings wildly based on the luck of the roll. When she's really hot, she feels unstoppable. When she runs cold, she feels miserable. So you don't outplay opponents with Gunslinger. You just manage your variance as best as you can. And if you can do it better than them, you typically end up winning. Let's go over to the Gunslinger's leaflet. Evasive, really strong ability. If you have it on the board, you can have up to 3. If you roll a 1 or a 2 during your opponent's attack, you avoid all damage. Reload is kind of her unique mechanic. I believe it's in her passive, quick draw. During your upkeep, gain a reload, and then you use it as an attack modifier where you would spend it and roll a die and deal half the damage of the die. So if you have if you get 4 of these a game and every one of them is a 5 or a 6, you just added, what is that, 16 damage to all of your total damage, which is really good. Knockdown is a negative status effect where your opponent has to spend 2 CP or skip their offensive roll phase. And then Bounty is another one that's unique to her. It adds 1 damage, and then when you also attack the person, you gain a CP, which is really, really cool. She has the stereotypical AAA, BB, C dice, or 3 bullets, 2 dashes, and 1 bullseye. Let's hop back over to here, and we'll go over the Gunslinger's abilities really quickly. Revolver is going to be your basic. Bounty Hunter is you inflict that bounty and then deal undefendable damage. Quick Draw is her passive, which gains you the reload during your upkeep. Take Cover gets you an evasive and deals damage. Showdown is her small straight. Fan the Hammer, large straight. Deadeye is the mini ult with knockdown and 6 undefendable. Duel is you basically roll the dice against your opponent. If your roll is greater, you may deal 3 back or prevent half. If your roll is not greater, including equal to, so if you both roll 3s, you just deal 1 damage back to your opponent. And then lastly, her ult, which is fantastic, right? Evasive, bounty, knockdown, 10, and if you spent reload, you may reroll that die 1 time. So a lot of fun. Let's hop into her cards. All right, her unique cards, you're going to see Wanted right here. This is definitely something, if you get it early, it's really strong. It's a great early bounty if bounty isn't already up. It is 2 CP, so you want to make sure you use it properly. But again, if you think about it, if you spend this immediately in attack, you're getting 1 CP back because your opponent is bountied. Spin the Chamber and Wild West, they basically turn CP into damage. So, 1 CP, 1 CP, and you're going to be turning those reloads into damage and dealing additional damage. You're always going to want to play these. Eat Lead is a standard attack mod, always usable. And then Roulette is just flexibility between direct damage or pressure tool with knockdown. Most of the time you're going to be dealing 2 damage or inflicting knockdown, which can be really, really strong. And then Quick Draw is not a unique card. It is an upgrade. And I always recommend Quick Draw. If you get it early, it's really, really strong, really, really fun, and really, really good. Late game, you can probably sell it because it does cost 2 CP. That said, let's hop over to her actual upgraded cards. Upgrade Duel. This is a massive improvement. It goes from a 41% chance to a 59% chance because it changes from being greater than to being equal or greater than. So this is definitely a worthwhile upgrade, even though it is 3 CP. If you get the bounty on early, this is something you're going to want to upgrade. I would also say Fan the Hammer. Because honestly, if you can get Fan the Hammer turn 1, it gives you access to one of her best abilities, which is Pistol Whip. Fan the Hammer, you just continually spam Pistol Whip. Like, this is like Sleight of Hand for Gambit or Foul Friend for Raveness. If you find Pistol Whip, you just spam this the entire game. Because you're going to be doing undefendable damage, roughly, 2 to 3, because you're going to be using those reloads. You're going to be inflicting knockdown, so your opponent's going to have no CP, and then eventually they're going to stop having access to doing their offensive roll turns, because they're just going to have to pay 2 or get rid of it. And then you're also gaining some defensive maneuvering with evasive. So this is, by far, the easiest way to win with Gunslinger. Upgrade Fan the Hammer and roll Pistol Whip consistently for the rest of the game. Let's see, what else do we have? Deadeye is Revolver and Deadeye. You don't really need to upgrade. These are low priority or cells. And then everything else falls off quickly into the mid game. So even like Take Cover, it's a really good early game upgrade. Same thing with Bounty Hunter. But Bounty Hunter, Take Cover, Deadeye, and Revolver you can sell. Showdown you can sell, but make sure you're upgrading Duel and Fan the Hammer if you find it. Let's talk game plan. All right, game plan is pretty self-explanatory. Early game, preferably your first turn, you're going to want to roll aggressively for Bounty, because that's going to be a CP engine and a damage engine. If you can get Bounty on your opponent turn 1 and they can't get rid of it, you're going to have a lot more fun, and you're going to gain a lot more CP, which is going to be great. After that happens, you really just are taking the easiest attack. If you roll into Take Cover and bounties on them, you do take cover. If you roll in the small straight or large straight, you take that. I wouldn't say you necessarily take Revolver unless you have to, but if you have to, don't fight the dice, because you're always going to be able to spend the reload since you're getting it at your upkeep, right? And then you're going to convert CP into damage, so use your cards aggressively. CP is worthless without cards, so make sure you're using your cards aggressively. You're using your reloads every single turn. Do not store these up, because they can be targeted by status effects or status effect removal. Lastly, you're going to have to accept variance, right? Some games you're going to high roll, and some games you don't. So play as clean as you can regardless, but some games you're going to be really, really strong with your rolling and your high rolls, and you're getting more damage here, and you're getting more opportunity on your defense, etc. And other games, you're going to lose your defensive roll 5 out of 6 times and not get maximum value, and that's just Gunslinger. She is the gambling hero of the set. A couple of last tips I would say. Always roll Duel first before using your evasives. Always, I'm going to repeat that. Always roll for your Duel first. Always do your defense roll first before using your evasive. Second one would be save your dice mods for your evasive successes or stopping your opponent's ultimate. Don't use your dice mods to get a better roll or to do something here unless you're going to whiff, which you shouldn't, because you're always going to trust the dice and take the thing that you see. So you're using your dice mods to get your opponents off of stuff and get onto the evasives. That is what your dice mods are for. Use undefendable attacks into scary defenses, right? So if your opponent does have a really, really scary defense, you may want to keep spamming Bounty Hunter, because you're going to always be able to buff it up with reload. If you have Pistol Whip, that's going to be the route you want to go, or you're going to want to search for Deadeye. And then don't hoard cards. You'll lose them, right? So if you hoard cards, you're going to lose the game. Always use your cards aggressively. Obviously, don't end every turn with 0 cards in your hand, but if you have a modifier, use it. If you had this, use it, right? Matchup-wise, Gunslinger is strong against heroes that are reliant on defense, because you're going to have access to undefendable. You can do knockdown. You can do a lot of ways to really slow them down and hurt them. And heroes that can't punish variance. Gunslinger is going to be weak against consistent low variance damage heroes and heavy control and hand disruption heroes. So I would say if you had to compare Gunslinger to anybody, it's similar to Moon Elf, but Gunslinger has worse damage per roll and worse control, but better CP economy and undefendable damage access. So that's where the comparison would be. My final take on the Gunslinger. Gunslinger isn't about perfection. She's about embracing chaos. If you hate luck, I would avoid playing the Gunslinger. If you love luck and it's fun and every roll is exciting, Gunslinger is going to be the hero for you. If the dice are hot, you win. If the dice are cold, you cry. All right, let's do a couple of things. Let's say I got reload just to show you how a roll phase would work. And I'm going to go for bounty for my first roll. That's going to be my first situation. Currently, I don't see it there. Let's throw this all back. Okay, I'd probably try to fall back to take cover, which we either get take cover or showdown. I'm going to do take cover because I get the evasive. And then I'm going to use my reload. And it's going to be 5-6 with the damage mod. Let's do roll phase 2. We're going to keep the 6, trying to go for bounty. We get bounty hunter. So now the bounty's on them. It's going to add 1 damage to all of my attacks. And every time I attack into that opponent, I'm going to gain a CP. And I would have had a reload at the start of my turn. So this is where it gets fun, right? So bounty is 1 undefendable, +2 or +1 because of the bounty. And I'm going to gain a CP because of the bounty. So it's currently 2 undefendable and I gain a CP. And then I'm going to use reload and hit for another one. So it's 3 undefendable. All right, and then let's say this is my third turn. I would gain the reload. And this is where we're not going to be greedy. We have the reload. We have the bounty. We have some evasive to get around it. We roll into a small straight to start. Let's do one more roll. We end up getting the large straight, which is fantastic. We're going to go ahead and lock that in. We're going to gain 2 more evasives. And now it's going to be 8 damage +1, 9 damage, and I gain a CP because they're bountied. And then I'm going to throw my reload. Bam! So that's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 damage right there. And we are set up to play some defense moving forward. So you can see how your rolls and your variants can really dictate how much damage and how much fun you're going to be having. And that is the Gunslinger. Do not be afraid to like, comment, and subscribe. And I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Welcome back to Undefendable. We're going to be doing Play Like a Pro for the Samurai. Samurai is the most consistent hero in Dice Throne. His ceiling isn't flashy, but his floor is incredibly high. He rewards clean fundamentals, smart risk management, and disciplined play. If you value reliability over spikes, Samurai is elite. And I'll explain why he is consistent, because it is intentional. Let's hop into his leaflet. Negative stats effect shame. Reduce attack damage by 1. This is something you inflict on your opponent, and then when they attack you, if they have 2, they would get -2 to their attack on you. Honor is your attack modifier. 1 is going to add 1 damage, but if you have 2 honor, you can do 3 damage as an attack modifier. And then backstrike. When you are being attacked, of an offensive roll phase, you may choose to spend this token, and it can be undefendable. So when a player with backstrike receives damage, regardless of if it's defendable or not, you can use backstrike to hit them back for a roll, then deal half the value of damage back to them. His abilities are really straightforward. Let's kind of zoom in. Oh, his dice are really straightforward as well. AAA, BB, C, 3 katanas, 2 kabutos, and 1 rising sun. His abilities, there we go, are going to be the Katana Strike for a basic, Wakasashi, which is undefendable damage and gets you a backstrike, Solemnity for a shame and 7 damage, Budo or Budao is a small straight, which gains you the honor in 6, Masamune is the large straight. The mini alt is Hakakura, gain honor, gain backstrike, inflict 2 shame, and then deal 5 damage. And then his Shogun ultimate is right here with the honor, shame, and deal 13. And his defense is actually sneakily good, right? A lot of times you're preventing, 1 or 2 or 2 or 3, and then hitting them back. So this is actually a pretty sneakily good defense, which can deal damage and prevent damage back. Very rarely do I get this whiff where I don't roll a helm or a rising sun, where I would inflict myself with shame on you, but that can happen occasionally. You basically would roll 3 sabers, hit them back for 3, but then you would get shame on yourself. So not ideal, but it does happen. Let's go over the Samurai's cards. One thing to note, all of the Samurai's unique cards cost 1 CP, so they are all relatively affordable, and they're all relatively good. They basically all prevent or deal damage. Inflicting Shame prevents damage, and then dealing damage as attack modifiers, or Inflicting Shame. Backstrike inflicts damage, and then Honor is an attack modifier for you as well. Nothing flashy, but none of these are dead cards. They're never going to be dead cards in your hand, which is really, really nice. If we go over to the upgrade cards, the best one I would say, or the best two, are going to be Budo 2. This is like the Samurai's bread and butter, in my opinion, is the small straight. It's actually really, really strong. And then Stand Tall. If you can upgrade this defense, you roll an extra die, and you avoid shaming yourself, which is also really nice. Some situational stuff, I would say, is Wakasashi. Depending on your matchup, if you need access to really strong undefendable, Wakasashi can be strong, as well as Katana Slice. You know, the Katana Slice, if you need the additional damage, or you're trying to race them down, or you're having against a heavy control opponent, this can just be some nice steady damage where you can still inflict some shame and do some stuff with that as well. But Katana Slice and Wakasashis are typically situational. Budo and Stand Tall are always going to be ones that you upgrade. These are your bread and butter to make the Samurai good. The key truth is Samurai does not need upgrades to win, but if you had to, that would be how I would go about it. And one other thing to note, I didn't go over this with his abilities, is Bushido, which is his passive. If you are the first player of the game, gain an honor. At the conclusion of your turn, if you used less than 3 dice rolls during your offensive roll phase, gain honor. So when I mentioned he was consistent, he is consistent on purpose because you're trying to do all of your abilities for your offensive roll phase in 1 or 2 rolls, so you can start stacking up the 2 honors as consistently as possible to do the most amount of damage. That's why he is one of the most consistent heroes in the game. So game plan is you're going to take the easiest roll because the easiest roll is what's going to generate you the honor. Honor rewards low risk play. Avoid your third roll whenever possible. If you do not need to roll 3 times, do not roll 3 times. Accumulate your honor for your game plan. Treat honor as a guaranteed future damage. Don't gamble it away for marginal gains. You're always going to want to try and hit with 2 honor on you. And then attack every round for a consistent 6 to 7 damage, because that is going to add up fast. Your defense is really good. If you can start inflicting shame occasionally on your opponent, that's going to add up and smooth incoming damage for you as well. Samurai is consistent, but his main goal is to outlast, not outplay. He's going to punish mistakes from your opponent, but he's not going to quote-unquote punish your opponent. He'll punish their mistakes. So... and that's why Budo, actually, let me go and grab these cards real quick. Budo is one that I would upgrade, and Stand Tall. Those are the 2 that I would automatically upgrade every single time. If we had Wakasashi, that's an upgrade option as well, but everything else is pretty straightforward there. So a few tips: don't overvalue Backstrike, right? It only is going to deal 2 to damage or 1.5 damage on average, so don't overvalue it. Just play it. Anytime you have it, just play it. That's the nature of the beast. Undefendable attacks aren't automatically better with Samurai, so just because you have access to this does not make this better. If I had Wakasashi or the small straight, especially if the small straight is upgraded, even if it's not upgraded, I would probably go for the small straight. Because in most scenarios, I gained an honor from my last turn, and then you can see here, this gains an honor and then deals damage. So I would gain an honor, and then it would be 8, 9, 10, 11, because I would be spending 2 honor to buff it 3. So that is why you upgrade this. You're doing consistently 11 damage to your opponent. It is defendable. You do have access to undefendable against those pesky defensive heroes, but your bread and butter, if you can find it, is going to be Budo, or just taking the roll that you can get without rolling 3 times. If you can hit 2 actions at once, always take that line, right? So like if there's a roll where you can go for small straight or solemnity, that's one where your second roll you're going to be maximizing that opportunity. Spend honor in singles versus evasive heavy opponents. That's a good tip. So like in this scenario, If I have Budo and I go here, maybe I'm going to spend one instead of both of them against evasive, heavy opponents. And then the last tip I would say is you are one of the best go-first characters in the game because your game plan is so consistent and so straightforward. Going first, you're going to have a really, really strong time. Matchups, Samurai is going to be strong against high variance heroes, complex heroes with high skill ceilings, and inexperienced players, right? Just to be honest. And is weak against highly consistent, higher damage heroes. So anyone that can out damage him or is just as consistent as him he's gonna be weak against. Players who execute perfectly, that's everyone, and then characters that clearly outperform him on one axis. So the Samurai doesn't dominate matchups; he just survives them. My final take is Samurai doesn't try to beat you. He lets you beat yourself. If you misplay, he wins. If you gamble, he wins. If you play sloppy, he wins. He is the definition of low risk, high reliability, and one of the best heroes to master the fundamentals with. Play clean, take the easy damage, let consistency do the work. So, let's do a couple of examples. Let's say I'm going first with the Samurai. I would actually get an honor because I'm the first player. Let's say hypothetically Budo was in my hand. I'm going to upgrade that absolutely, and we're going to roll. And this is one where I probably take Wakasashi because that's the most obvious roll. And I'm going to gain an honor at the end of my turn because I only rolled once, and then it's going to be 3 undefendable damage. Now, my opponent attacks into me. Let's say I have the upgraded defense. I'm going to roll 4, and this is where it gets fun. I'm preventing 3 and hitting them back for 2. That's a really, really good defense, right? And then on top of that, I'm going to use Backstrike to hit them back for another 3. So I just hit them back for 5 damage and prevented 3. You can see how that can add up pretty consistently. Now let's go into my offensive roll phase here. And this is where it gets a little bit spicy, right? So statistically, the small straight is probably where you want to chase. This is probably one of your worst scenario rolls. Hopefully you have a dice mod here. You could potentially go for solemnity as well. So this is one where I'm probably going to keep 4-5 and then see what happens. And we end up getting the small straight here, where we're going to be spending our honor to deal 8, 9, 10, 11 damage. And then at the end of the turn, since we only rolled twice, we're going to gain that honor back. And then just one last example of the defense. We are going to prevent 2, 3 damage, and hit back for 1. And that is how you play the Samurai. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Don't be afraid to like, comment, and subscribe. Ooh, welcome back to Undefendable. We're going to be doing Play Like a Pro for the Tacticianer, a quick guide. Let's do a quick overview. The Tacticianer is the thinking player's hero. He has more ways to manipulate the game state than almost anyone else, but very little raw power. He wins by perfect efficiency, not power spikes. If you enjoy planning 3 turns ahead and squeezing value out of every resource, Tactician is your guy. His leaflet, which is right over here, the first token is going to be Tactical Advantage. You can have up to 5 of these. This is just basically everything for the Tacticianer. This is what you want, this is what you get, this is what you cycle. Player with these tokens may spend them at any time to activate the various effects. 1 token, you can gain a CP. 1 token, you may reroll 1 of your dice. 3 tokens can draw you a card or inflict targeted on a chosen opponent. 4 tokens can gain you Protect, or transfer 1 status effect from any player to any player. This may only be done during the main phase for that last one. Constrict, negative status effect you affect on your opponent. Spend 1 CP per additional roll attempt. During their offensive roll phase, a player afflicted with this token must pay a CP to re-roll their attempts for their roll phases. Remove this at the end of the roll phase. Targeted as 2 damage of incoming attacks. It is persistent, so you put that on your opponent. They're going to take an extra 2 damage until they get rid of it. And then Protect is just a way to half the damage coming at you. If they don't get rid of it, you can half whatever they do coming at you, round it up. AAABB dice with the C metal, sabers, flags, and metal. Heck yeah, it's metal. Alright. Tactician abilities. Basics. His Carpet Bomb is undefendable damage, gain a tactical advantage. Profiteer Gain tactical advantage, then roll 1 and do the following. Strategic approach, inflicts constrict and does 7. Flank is the small straight. Exploit is the large straight. Maneuver is going to be your mini. Your defense for countermeasures, and then you have your ultimate high ground, which does a lot of stuff. If you need to pause and read it, I can wait. Let's go over the Tacticianer's cards. Alright, the Tacticianer's cards we got for the unique cards, Ambush. This is one of the best cards you can have. You're never going to sell this. It's an instant action, 1 CP, gain 2 tactical advantage. Really, really, really strong. War Room, this is just an excellent value engine. Just like this, it's just not an instant. We have Disengage, this is just free utility. It's always going to be playable. Do not sell this. It's 0 CP as well. What else we got? Bunker Up, cheap mitigation, safer than Protect. So you just get a Protect for 2 CP, really strong. And then Feigned Retreat, this is expensive, 2 CP. But it is sometimes necessary. This is definitely one that you're going to want to hang on to. Good news about these cards, you have options. The hard part is choosing the right time to do it and the right one that you want to use for the CP that you get. Let's go over the upgrade cards. Here we go. Let's line this up. Flank, this is really good if you draw it early. It kind of falls off late game. What else do we got? Profiteer, this is just going to make actionable plays. So this is definitely one that you can upgrade. It's worth considering. This is not necessarily a damage play, but this does give you a lot of utility for the game, which is really nice. And then Carpet Bomb, this is really only if you want the strategies, right? So if you want to get strategize, this is why you would upgrade Carpet Bomb, because it gives you access and gives you drawing cards. It's a good way to slow the game down, and it's a good way to be a control opportunist. Usually you're going to sell the most of the defense upgrades, especially the final one. You're never really going to want to upgrade this, but maybe you would upgrade countermeasures. 5 CP, that's just disgusting. Exploit, and then strategic approach. Yeah, you're going to want to sell these as well. His upgrades are all situational. They're not core to his gameplay. But if I had to pick, Profiteer is a good one, Flank is a good one early, and then countermeasures. All right, as for the game plan for the Tacticianer, again, it's all going to revolve around getting tactical advantage. You're going to start the game with 2 tactical advantages, and your main goal is to build up tactical advantages. So turn 1, you're going to want to really kind of chase for Flank or Profiteer. You must enable targeted immediately. That is a very important thing. You need to get this on your opponent immediately to maximize the damage that you can do. After that, I'd say the game plan is just to maintain targeted. This is your top priority every turn. Without it, your damage is just not strong enough. Spend tactical advantages late. So keep tactical advantages unspent until it generates the value you're looking for based on the abilities that you can do. Tactical advantages is safer than Protect or Targeted sitting on your board, because these can be used instantly. You do not need to use these in the main phase, which is really nice. And then lastly, I would say grind your opponent down. You're not a spike champion. You are not building to do a combo or to do some massive damage. You are extracting maximum value every single round through targeted, tactical advantages, gaining protects, preventing things, trying to suck your opponent out with constrictions and things like that. A few couple of tips for Tacticianer. Never rush Protect if the opponent has CP. Right? If they have CP, you don't want to put Protect on the board, because it is such an easy target for a get that out of here, or a what status effects, or a bye-bye, etc. Tip number 2, stealing or transferring status effects can swing games. Remember, at 4 tactical advantages, you can transfer 1 status effect from any player to any player. So if you have 4 of these on the game, or on the board, let's say you're playing a Spider-Man and they just did combo into another combo, hypothetic. Well, no, that's a bad example, because I don't think you can transfer combo anymore. But maybe there's a webbed. Maybe this is basically a transference, which is really, really nice. And it can literally swing the game if you time it properly. Tip number 3, re-rolling dice for tactical advantage, inefficient, but sometimes necessary. Remember, you can spend 1 to re-roll dice at any time, 1 dice at any time. So it is an inefficient use of tactical advantage, but sometimes it's necessary. So always have that in the back of your head. Tactical advantage equals cards or CP, or tactical advantage is just, it's not like a plan A for cards or CP. Sorry, I was getting stumbled there. You don't want to necessarily cash these in to build up your CP or to draw cards, because you can spend 1 to gain CP, or you can spend 3 to draw a card. That is not the top priority. It is not plan A, but you can use it in an emergency or if you need to. Lastly, I would say Tacticianer. Chasing ultimates is legit for Tacticianer if you're stacked with tactical advantage, right? So this is something where it is worth chasing with Tacticianer because you're going to probably need it if you want to win the game. Matchup-wise, Tacticianer is going to be strong against heroes with transferable status effects. He's going to be strong against heroes where players overcommit to those statuses. So like Paladin, Shadow Thief maybe, anything that you can transfer really strong effects from your opponent to yourself, or from you to your opponent, even like Phoenix Burn on a Jean Grey, or Force Field on a Jean Grey. Tacticianer could be really, really annoying in those matchups, and most of those heroes are slower setup heavy opponents, which is where Tacticianer tends to shine the most. He's going to be weak against high damage per roll rush down heroes, Pyromancer, Gambit, things like that, or heroes that can easily remove this targeted one. Jean Grey can remove this with Force Field. Who else? There's other ones that can just kind of remove stuff or move stuff and get rid of it. Gosh, I can't think of them right now. But you know what I'm trying to say. Cleanse. Monk can do it really easily as well. And then he's going to be weak against consistent mitigation walls. So if you can't keep targeted on your opponent, you will not win the game. All right? Final take, Tacticianer is a control hero with no finish line. You don't build towards dominance. You earn every point every turn. Play sloppy and you lose. Waste tactical advantage and you lose. Misread removal and you lose. But if you play perfectly, if you play well, you don't overpower your opponent, you outthink them, and eventually you're going to win. He is not a forgiving hero, but if you can master him, he can be really good into certain matchups. And then, yeah, I guess I could do like a couple of rolls here just to kind of get this thing going. So again, early on, we're really going to push for Profiteer or Flank. That isn't ideal, but that does give us at least a little bit of flexibility. There we go. We got the small right there. I probably wouldn't reroll, but just for the video, let's see if we get the 5. Nope. So we go here. We gain the 2 tactical advantages, and then we deal 6 damage. And then we're going to convert 3 of these tokens to get the targeted on them immediately, which we can do. So now it's 6, 7, 8 damage coming at them. All right. Roll number 2. Let's go ahead and roll this in here. We're pushing towards Profiteer here. Let's go ahead and I'm going to keep these 4, 5, and then roll that. And yeah, we got Profiteer. So we're going to gain 2 tactical advantages and roll 1. On a 4, we're going to gain 3 more tactical advantages, which puts us at stack limit. And this is kind of an interesting thing. What I can do before I gain those 3 additional ones, right, is I can do something with this. They already have targeted on them, so maybe I would draw a card, or maybe I would gain CP here so that I'm not overstacking those tactical advantages. And that is how you play Tacticianer. Don't be afraid to like, comment, and subscribe. Appreciate you. Talk soon. Welcome back to Undefendable. We're going to be diving into the Artificer Play Like a Pro guide. The Artificer is a damage per roll king. Not the flashiest burst hero, but he applies relentless, repeatable pressure and turns the match into a 5-turn sprint if you can't slow him down. You manage a 3rd resource called Synth on top of CP and cards, but the game plan is usually the same every single time. Let's go over his leaflet really quickly. Synth is going to be one of his positive status effects. You're building this up to build your Nanobot, Shockbot, and Healbot, and then upgrade them to gain that consistent healing and damage per turn. 2 tokens to build the basic bot, and then 3 tokens to upgrade that basic bot to an advanced bot. Spend to activate bots. So you can see on these bots, there's 2 synths. So it's going to cost you 2 tokens to build it, but then it's going to cost you 2 synth tokens to activate it. And we'll go over that once we get into the Artificer a little bit further. Nanites are negative stat effect tokens you place on your opponents, and ultimately you're trying to stack this to about 3 and then use your nanite bot to blow them up to deal 1, 3, or 5 damage during that opponent's, or during upkeep phase of player with 1, blah, blah, blah. You would blow it up during your upkeep. So on their upkeep, they're rolling to get it off. On your upkeep, you can spend the synth to blow them up if they're on your opponent. That's what the nanite bot does. The shock bot is your damage modifier. It's going to add 3 damage to the end of your offensive roll phase attacks. And then the heal bot is basically your defense. If you're damaged or being attacked with at least 6 damage, upon activation, roll 1 for each activation you do for this. If it's a wrench, you're going to heal 1. If it's a gear or bolt, you're going to heal 2. Most of the time, you're going to activate this 2 times, and you're going to average heal 2 to 3 damage per attack that's coming onto you. His abilities are relatively straightforward, and he is actually one of those heroes where you're going to lean heavily into your basic, which is Spanner Strike, 3, 4, 5 damage, which doesn't look like a lot, but when you add in an additional 3 damage from the shock bot, and then the additional potential damage from spending a synth to roll 3, you could be a lot of turns doing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 damage with your basic, which is really, really easy to get. Scrap Collector, during your upkeep, gain a synth. You may pay 4 during your synth at any time to inflict a nanite on your opponent. Schematics is like your economy. Draw 2 cards, heal 2, gain 4 synth. That's really just to build your bots back up, get synth back going. Eureka does a little bit of both. It gains synth and deals damage. And then you have your small and your large straights. You have your mini ult, which is undefendable damage. Your defense, which is ratchet up. And then you have the ultimate, which is not too shabby. Let's go over the Artificer's cards real quick. All right, unique cards for the Artificer. High Voltage, this is one of the best opening hand cards you can have because you get 2 synth right away, which allows you to build your bots a lot more effectively and quicker, which gets you into your game plan a lot faster. Ooh, shiny, similar value, slightly worse since it costs similar value, but you're having to roll, so it's not a guaranteed of 2 or more. High Voltage costs 1, Ooh Shiny costs 0, so these are equally really, really strong cards that you want to have in your opening hand if you can get them so you can build your bots as quickly as possible. Conductivity, flexible value, CP or synth depending on the role, so this is just a really, really nice card to have. It's always going to be valuable. Arching Shield, free mitigation, can be boosted with synth. This is a really great card. Robo Revenge, small mitigation, but it's playable, but it is underwhelming. It's nothing that's really too crazy. And then Nanite Assault, it's really niche. Often you're going to sell this for the CP because you're going to want the CP, but most of the time your Nanite Assault or your Nanites are not your main game plan when it comes to playing the Artificer optimally. Let's go over the upgrade cards. So the most obvious one is going to be the Spanner Strike. This is your entire game plan. You upgrade your bots, and then you just keep spamming Spanner Strike over and over and over again. Schematics is fine. Zap is fine because it gives you a little bit of flexibility, but I'd say Spanner Strike and then Ratchet Up, giving you an access to an additional die. This is really, really nice if you have the CP available. Everything else, Eureka's good. It is just going to be situational. Spanner Strike, Eureka, and Ratchet Up are going to be the ones that I would really recommend. If you find Scrap Collector early, it's not bad, but again, you're going to have to be CP conscious. He does a good job at generating CP, but just be aware that all of these are 2 or more CP, except for the one that you're going to want to upgrade. Now, let's talk about game plan. Turn 1, let's get just back to here we go. Turn 1, you're going to want to build your shock bot as quickly as possible. This is priority 1. It costs 2 to build the basic one, and then it costs 3 to upgrade the basics, and when you upgrade it, then it only costs 1 to activate it. So I know that might sound a little bit confusing, but I'll try and walk you through a few turns as we go through it. But your priority, your whole first turn is built around building your bot and upgrading your bot. Your whole second turn is built around building your heal bot and upgrading your heal bot, and at least by turn 3. Worst case scenario, this is upgraded by turn 3, but ideally you get the shock bot on board and upgraded, and then the heal bot on board and then upgraded by turn 2. Worst case, turn 3. Nanobot, this is kind of a trap. If you have the extra synth and you want it, sure, but this isn't necessarily one that you really need to prioritize because most of your damage and defense is going to come from these two, and the synth is going to flow through those as well. When you roll early game, your game plan, you're going to be doing Eureka. Eureka is your most important early game action. If you miss Eureka, you can go for schematics. That's your plan B early game. Once you've built your bots, your Spanner Strike becomes the go-to damage line because it's easy and scales with your extra synth, right? And that's really how you play the Artificer. Upgrade the bots, Eureka early to build the bots, schematics as your fallback, and then you just keep spamming Spanner Strike over and over and over again. All right, so let's talk about some tips and tricks with the Artificer. Protect your early synth. Losing it early delays your entire engine, so like you're going to want to try and protect it as much as possible. Use it accordingly to build the bots and get these online as quickly as you can. Use it most efficiently. Upgrade the shock bot is the best damage per synth. Heal bot is great once online, but not your opening priority. Opening priority is always going to be the shock bot. Don't be afraid to pivot into like the full toolbox style. Big Spanner Strike turns once your bots are established. Okay, so again, build the bots, spam Spanner Strike. That is your game plan. Schematics early is great. Schematics early is great. Schematics late is usually not good. Matchups, the Artificer is going to be strong into heroes who need time to set up. So Shadow Thief, Tacticianers, a lot of control or quote-unquote value heroes. He's also going to be good into low mitigation heroes you can simply outrace because he's just going to be able to do as much damage as consistently as possible. So if he can outrace them, that's going to be good. He's going to be weak into heroes who can both mitigate and still hit hard. For example, the Paladin, who can protect and has really good defense when it's defendable damage and then can hit back hard with accuracy and crit. He's also potentially going to be weak into big hitters who punish your early lack of defense if you stumble. If you stumble to get the heal bot online and you're playing against a big hitter like a Wolverine, a Pyromancer, things like that, it's going to be hard to catch back up. So, final take, Artificer is simple but brutal. Build the shock bot fast, get heal bot online fast, never waste synth, and if your opponent tries to turtle, then you can nanite and say hello. So let's do a quick example. You're always going to start the game with 3 synth on the board, which is great. And from here, what we're going to do, let's just do this first. We'll build the shock bot for 2 tokens, and then we're going to roll. All right. Now, again, we're going to be pushing for Eureka, but if we find schematics, that's fine as well. This is definitely more of a schematics roll. That's a little scary, but let's see what happens. Ouch. That is not ideal. So let's just say that never happened. Here we go. All right, there we go. So we got schematics, so we would draw 2 cards, we would heal 2, and then this is where it's important, we would gain 4 synth. And by gaining this 4 synth, we would then spend 3 to upgrade this bot. I would even then spend 2 to get my heal bot ready to go online, okay? Now, let's say my opponent swings into me. This is how the heal bot would work. Well, actually, it's not really a great example here, but we would now gain 2 synth from our defense, and if we wanted to, since this is still in the basic and not the advanced, I could spend this 2 synth to do my heal roll. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to go into my upkeep phase, and I would gain a synth from my upkeep phase. So now you'd say, okay, well, why don't I upgrade my heal bot here? Well, because we don't want to upgrade the heal bot here because we may want to start rushing down the damage and we'll get to the heal bot eventually. So this is where Eureka would be fantastic, but if we don't find Eureka, well, then maybe we want to fall back to, the Spanner Strike. So let's just do Spanner Strike. There we go. We're going to do 5 damage. And actually, while we're here, let's just say we upgraded this and we upgraded that, like I said. And we're here, so now I can roll 1, or I can spend a synth to roll 3. So I'm going to spend the synth to roll 3, and we're going to be doing 6, 7, 8, 9, and then I'm going to spend 1 more synth to activate my bot, so that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 damage from my basic attack and 1 synth. Pretty bonkers. Now, I'm not going to upgrade my heal bot here because I wanted to get that damage across, right? Now, you could go either way, but that's just the way I decided. They swing back into me. We're going to gain 2 synth. And now we are on track to upgrade that heal bot this turn coming up, okay? And that, well, actually, let's just go to 1 more turn. Let's say we roll. There's the Spanner Strike again. We could do that, but I do want to upgrade my heal bot, so this might be one where I'm going to push for Eureka. So let's keep 2, 3. I don't know if that's actually what I should have done. You know what? Let's just scrap that. We're going to go Spanner Strike again, and we're going to spend a synth to roll 3. And there you go. We're going to gain a synth. We're going to gain a synth from rolling a 6, and then it's going to be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 from that. So now it's 11. So I just did 12 and then 11 defendable damage into my opponent with my basic attack, right? Again, I want to upgrade the heal bot here, but I just kind of wanted to show you how that mechanic would work. Normally, I may try to push this, depending on my dice mods, to build this, flip this over. Because just to show you how this would work, let's say the opponent's attacking me for 9 defendable damage. I would roll, I would gain a synth here, and if this was upgraded, I could spend 2 of these because they're attacking me for more than 6 damage, and then I would roll 2, and there you go. I would heal for 3, because I would heal for 2 from the lightning, and then 1 from the screw. And that's how the heal bot would operate, and how the synth starts to flow with the Artificer. Appreciate you guys. Don't be afraid to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Welcome back to Undefendable. We're going to be doing a quick guide on Play Like a Pro for Seraph. Quick intro. Seraph is a methodical, grind you down hero. Decent defense, lots of status effects in play, and a minor in undefendable damage. Undefendable. She doesn't win by racing, she wins by stretching the game, shaving off your tempo, and making your best tools feel bad. Let's go over some of those tokens. First one, we got Flight. You roll 2 dice to dodge or make undefendable. A player with this token may spend it at any time during the roll phase. Once spent, roll 2 dice. If a 6 was rolled, activate this token. If activated during your offensive roll phase, this player's attack becomes undefendable. If activated during your defensive roll phase, ignore all incoming damage. Lots of utility there. Pretty cool. Blinding Light, roll 1 to fail or reduce attack damage. The next time a player afflicted with this token concludes their offensive roll phase, they must remove this token and roll 1. On a 1, their offensive roll phase has no effect of any kind. On a 2 or 3, any damage that they deal for the remainder of the roll phase is reduced by half. Pretty cool. So it's like you're blind or the sun's in your eyes, and then a 4, 5, and 6, nothing happens. Cleanse. This just removes a status effect, so you would put it on yourself, and then if they inflict you with the burn, you could just use the cleanse to get rid of the burn. Holy Presence. Deal 1 damage to all opponents. During their upkeep phase, a player with this token deals 1 damage to all opponents. This token may not be transferred by any means. So if you can get 2 of these on you, you're hitting your opponent for 2 damage during your upkeep every turn. Kind of like Captain Marvel's Cosmic Flares. And then Blessing of Divinity, prevent being defeated. When you die, instead of dying, you would crack this Blessing of Divinity, and then you would come back with 1 health. Her dice are going to be 3 blades, 1 wing, 1 cross, one Angelic Pendant, making it a little spicy when it comes to some of her abilities. Let's go over her abilities really quickly. Holy Blade's going to be your basic. Purify, choose a player, deal 5 undefendable damage. Otherwise, that player heals 4. Oh, if it's an opponent, 5 damage. Otherwise, it's heal 4. Additionally, you may remove a status effect from that player. Glorious, gain flight, then deal 6. Holy Smite, roll 4, do whatever it says. Triumphant is the small straight. Large straight. Mini ult for highest power. Really fun stuff. Lots of status tokens here. And then Angelic Mantle. You're going to do something. You cannot whiff, which is kind of nice. And then Split the Heavens for the ultimate for Seraph. Let's go over her cards. One thing to mention with Seraph. Seraph is CP starved. So all of her cards have a high average CP cost. She has no CP generation on her board. So you're going to expect to sell a lot of cards pretty often. I mean, look at this thing. This thing costs 4. It does a lot, but it costs 4 CP. Let's go over these. Smote, standard attack modifier. It's usually worth it, right? There's a bonus chance to land the Blinding Light, which is kind of cool. Angelic Combat. It's a flexible modifier. Most results are worth it. Sometimes it can be situational. To the Skies, usually you're going to sell this. You can generate flight pretty easily on your board, so sometimes you need the CP, so selling this is basically a net 2 CP because you're not spending 1 and you're gaining 1 from it. And then Divine Intervention, high risk, high reward, huge CP commitment. Great when it sticks, but brutal when it gets removed. So don't build your whole plan around getting this thing off, all right? Let's go over the upgrade cards really quickly. High priority, I would say, is going to be Triumphant. Triumphant is definitely an upgrade you're going to want because your small straight is going to be pretty commonly rolled. This turns your best damage per roll line into an actual win condition if you can find this. Angelic Mantle 2 or 3. The defense upgrade scales very well. Do more damage, prevent more damage, do more damage, prevent more damage, and have a reroll opportunity, which is really, really nice. It is expensive, but it does scale well. This is just disgusting value if you can get it. You can prevent 4, you can gain flight and potentially do some cool stuff there. So really, really cool stuff. And then the Glorious upgrade. Glorious is likely going to be one of your more commonly rolled abilities. So if you can get this early, it just creates a lot more consistency, which is really, really nice. Because again, Glorious is your most common, reliable bread and butter for damage and fuel and flight generation, etc. A couple of cards that are going to be situational. Purify is situational. What else we got? Highest Power, situational. When the matchup makes the defense option a monster, you may need to go for this, but yeah, and then the Holy Blades, it's nice, but it's not necessary if your CP is going to be tight. So let's go ahead and grab these and move these down here really quickly so we can plug these into place of what we want. These are the ones that I would suggest the most. And let's kind of see what we want to do here. So let's talk game plan for Seraph. So again, you're not trying to win this game in 5 rounds. You're trying to make their best turns irrelevant with your status tokens, with what you can do with Blinding Light, with what you can do with Flight, and things like that. So your default plan is you're going to chip with safe attacks. Oftentimes it's going to be Glorious or Triumphant, while building your flights and your status leverage, right? Your Holy Presence, your flights. You want to build up the flights early because that's going to give you the best opportunity to ignore damage or make your attacks undefendable. Spend flights to avoid the biggest damage, not for cute offensive value unless it is opportune. And then you can use Purify as the matchup-specific weapon when it removes high-value effects. It does become a heal plus damage plus huge mitigation depending on the status effects that are on them or on you. And then lastly, keep your CP flexible. Over-investing into status effects and getting wiped by removal is how Seraph loses, right? She is hugely vulnerable to what status effects and get that out of the ears and things like that. So do not overcommit to these effects without actually attempting to do damage, etc. A few last tips. Flight usage. The rule of thumb is spend it to deny max damage, not to slightly improve your own attack. Your defensive flight is usually going to win you more games than it would on the offense. Glorious is secretly a damage per roll reducer. If you're dodging 1 out of 3 attacks over time with your flights, then that's a pretty massive swing even without huge numbers. Avoid smashing into punishing defenses. If their defense roll is brutal, pivot towards the undefendable line of Holy Smite or Purify instead of feeding them value if you don't need to. Let's see. Purify is going to be a long-term investment. It's best when it's removing things like targeted, bounty, damage over times, degeneration effects, things like that. So think of it as a tempo reset more than a healing opportunity. Or if you need access to undefendable, this is a good one. Your Sixit and dice tools are premium for you because you can convert flights into even bigger swings, right? So make sure, right, if a 6 was rolled, activate this token. If activated, etc., right? So make sure you're holding on to those because they're even more premium on Seraph. Your worst games happen when you fall behind early into a big health gap, or you dump a lot of CP into static engines, and it just gets eaten up, or it's not well timed, or it gets removed. Okay? Matchups. She's going to be strong in opponents whose plans rely on removable status effects, right? So burn, targets, bounties, delayed poisons, powder kegs, things like that, time bombs. She's going to have a really decent matchup into those because you're going to be able to deny a lot of that while still doing things, which is nice. Imagine like you get hit with like a time bomb and you purify, and instead of losing 4, you heal 4 and don't lose 4. That's like an 8, potentially 8 delta, or not delta, whatever the word is, right? She's also going to be strong in matchups against opponents that depend on defensive rolls for damage. Flight lets you skip the defense tax, and Purify can break through that momentum, which is really nice. Who's she going to be weak into? Early game damage per roll bullies who front load damage before you stabilize. So Gambit, Pyromancer, Wolverine, those aggro heroes. Maybe even Alchemist, potentially. Probably not. And then late game control value heroes that build a stronger end state than you, especially if they don't need defensive rolls to thrive. So like Shadow Thief, for example, right? She's also going to be weak into heavy CP disruption. So Cursed Pirate, right? That's going to hurt because she's already CP starved. If you can steal that, Shadow Thief, Cursed Pirate, stuff like that, or get rid of it, knockdowns are going to be brutal for her. That's going to be tough. So final take, Seraph wins by being inevitable. Don't race it down. Don't overinvest. Spend your flights on their biggest turns, and when the matchup gifts you value, Purify becomes a win condition. All right? So, I just did something with my ruler, but that is how you play. How do I get off this? Anyway, that's how you play Seraph. I now have a ruler. So that's fun. All right. Don't be afraid to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Welcome back to Undefendable. We're going to be doing a Play Like a Pro guide for the Vampire Lord, and this is one of my favorite heroes and one of the ones that I learned first. So let's do a quick overview. The Vampire Lord is the big swing villain. She can create the nastiest health swings in the game by banking resources, aka her blood power, and then converting them into undefendable pressure, massive burst turns, and occasional huge heals. She's patient, but also deadly. Let's go over her leaflet really quickly. We got blood power, which is kind of like her unique, or I would say it is her unique token. Blood power is you get a stack limit of 5, you gain this on your board, and you can use it as an attack modifier by spending 1 to add 3 damage. You can spend 2 to remove a status effect from a chosen player. This effect may only be activated during your main phase. Spend 3, and these are at any time. Doesn't need to be during your main phase unless it specifies when. I mean, obviously, offensive roll phase, main phase, draw 3 or draw 2 at any time for 3 tokens. So if someone, like if you have like 4 on you and someone tries to hit you with a what status effects, you can spend 3 to draw 2, and then you would just lose the 1. 4 tokens is the lifesteal ability. So as an attack mod, You could, let's say you're swinging at them for 7 and you have 4 tokens, you can spend 4 to steal 7 health, or whatever damage gets through, right? Like if they prevent 6, you would only steal 1, right? And then if your attack successfully deals damage to an opponent inflicted with 2 bleeds, you would gain a blood power at the conclusion of your turn. Mesmerize is also another unique one to the Vampire Lord. It forces an opponent to reroll a die. Ultimately, you would spend this, and then you would roll, and if you roll a 5 or a 6, you may force your opponent to reroll 1 die. So it's basically a helping hand, but you have to roll a 5 or a 6 for it to go off. And then bleed. Roll 1 in the upkeep, your opponent would. On a 1 or 5, 1, 2, 3, or 4, they receive a damage. On a 5 or 6, the bleed comes off. If they have 2 bleeds on them when you attack, you would gain a blood power. Now, let's go over the Vampire Lord's abilities really quickly. The basic is Gouge, 3/5/7. On 4 of a kind, you gain a blood power. You have Sanguimancy, which is a really good setup. Heal 2, gain 3 blood power. Blood power is going to be your engine. Glamour, undefendable damage. Get the Mesmerize token and gain a CP. Rend is a really, really good attack, but really tough to chase for. Possess is the small. Blood Magic is the large. Bloodthirst is the mini. And then we have Immortal Flesh, which is okay. It's not great. It's okay. And then the bread and butter of most Vampire Lord players is the ultimate. You kind of build up hybrid-wise. You get some cards, you draw some cards, and then you just unload and try to steal as much health as possible with your ultimate. Very, very fun stuff. Let's look at her cards. Alright, so these are going to be the unique cards. Blood Flow, always useful, especially great when you're short on blood power for a big heal or turn. What else? Bloodletting. This is efficient value, damage plus CP like tempo, which is really, really nice. So you gain a CP for 0 CP, and you gain a blood power, which is going to be your damage. Dark Omen is 4 CP, so it is expensive with a really high ceiling. Stronger when your opponent can't immediately punish you with removal, right? So this is one you really want to kind of time well and set it up. Consume Blood is generally a trap. Its blood power is too valuable to trade for CP, so really you're not going to be wanting to spend blood power to get CP. You should have enough CP from your abilities, so I would just sell this one. Limb from Limb, prime ultimate tutor target if you're already having enough blood power to heal. This is one where you want to line up your ultimate and then cast this to get the most health steal possible. And then same thing with Blood Boil. It's a free modifier that's excellent if bleed stacks are already online. It just adds more damage. As for the upgrade cards, some high priorities. It's a little bit unique. If you can get the Gouge, specifically the Gouge 3, but even the Gouge 2 that makes your blood power on a 3 of a kind more accessible, this is amazing, right? Because if you roll 5 of the claws and 3 of them are 1s, you're gaining a blood power, which you can use as an attack modifier to buff this by 3. So you're doing 10 or 11 damage. So this can really change up your game plan completely if you draw this early. You can just continually spam this back to back to back to back to back and make it a race if you wanted to. Blood Magic is really solid because it makes your mid-game more reliable by giving you an undefendable fallback. And then any upgrade that really makes your common lines more consistent, right? You're already juggling blood power and awkward dice patterns, so anything that makes your lines more consistent is going to be something that you would want to lean into. Low priority or situational, Sanguimancy, the upgrade's usually meh unless you're really going full economy or control. And then the Rend upgrade is nice early, but it's really sellable to mid to late game because this is one where, you know, you're not really going to chase it, right? And it's not necessarily the easiest thing to roll for. So if you need the CP, you don't need to upgrade it, which is kind of nice. And yeah, I would even say potentially upgrading the small, which is, it just makes it a little bit more consistent. You're not rolling for bleed or mesmerize, it just gives you a little bit more consistency there. So let's go ahead and move. Let's just move this down here so you guys can kind of see which upgrades I would potentially value if I had to. And then I would say Possess. You could even throw Ren down there, but let's not do that for now because let's just say we didn't. So Let's go over game plan. So the Vampire Lord is unique because I think her flexibility gives her really good consistency against a lot of types of heroes. She has an aggro pressure style build, right, which is really good against slower build-up heroes. So if you're playing a slow build-up hero, you really want to get your blood power online as quickly as possible and start spending it as quickly as possible to do as much damage to your opponent as possible. Glamour is going to be really good to avoid the defenses and keep that pressure on consistently. I mean, think about that. A blood power and glamour is 7 undefendable, and you gain a CP, which is really, really nice if your opponent has strong defense. What else? You can convert excess blood power into card draw when you're ahead, which just gives you that much more of an advantage by drawing 2 cards. And then if you do find the gouge upgrade early, lean into that basic and just really, really hammer it home if you're going for that aggro pressure style. The other style is more of an economy base that you're really trying to build into your ultimate for a big heal swing, right? And this is one where if you're playing against really big defensive tanky opponents where you need to like drop just a nuke on them, this is one where you're going to build up with Sanguiomancy. You're going to get a lot of blood powers. You're going to draw a lot of cards and to find the pieces to allow you to cast this ult. And then when you're ready, you have it set up with your ult, your dice mods, and your modifiers, as well as your blood powers. You're just going to explode and steal a bunch of health to completely swing the game. Key reminder, healing alone does not win you the game. You still need enough damage throughput to close it out, but that's really that second style. And then I would even say the most common way to play Vampire Lord is kind of that hybrid, right? Where you're doing aggro and economy at the same time. Aggro trying to build into a big swing. So this is where you're mostly spending your blood power on damage to stay in the race, and you only cash in that blood power to heal when it's big enough or when it's impactful enough, or when you're towards the end of the game and you don't know if you're going to have enough opportunities to build it back up or to get enough value from the blood power, right? And that's going to be that hybrid style of gameplay. Rule of thumb is each blood power is 3 damage, so 4 blood power is technically 12 damage, right? So you don't want to go and blow 4 blood power on an attack if you're not going to, if it's going to be prevented or lowered or etc., because you're going to lose value there if you're not going to get enough heals back from that blood power. A few last tips. Blood power is sacred. Spend it like premium ammunition. You're not just going to fire it off all willy-nilly. You do want it to be aggressive, but you're not going to be like, oh, I have 5, so I'm just going to draw 2 cards because I have 5, right? This is a premium resource. Make sure you're using these blood powers intelligently to maximize your value. Tip number 2 is going to be bleed management. If they have 2 bleeds on them, you gain a blood power if you attack them, which is really, really strong. But bleed management does matter because max bleed stacks is going to help that blood power generation, and bleed itself is not reliable, right? Glamour is going to be your safest offense. It keeps damage flowing while dodging punishing defense. Mesmerize is very unreliable. Do not plan on it ever working. It is not a plan. If it hits, great. If it doesn't, don't let your whole turn collapse because of it. Don't expect this to hit is basically what I'm trying to say. It is wildly inconsistent. I think I've only seen it hit once, and I've played against it and with it many, many times. I don't know why. It just doesn't work. Lastly, status removal with blood power. Only do it when the effect is worth it. 6+ damage. Because 2 blood power equals 6 damage, right? Big effects like Parlay can be worth it. Small ones usually are not. Matchups for the Vampire Lord, really strong into heroes who rely heavily on defensive roles for value, and then really strong into opponents with limited damage prevention who can't stop your blood power fueling turns. And then I would say she's going to be weak into high early game damage per role heroes like Pyromancer, Artificer, because your defense just is not strong enough and it takes you a little bit of time to get set up. She's also going to be weak into defensive tools that don't require defensive rolls. So think of like non-damage roll phase prevention. So stuff that can just like blunt up your turn. So like protections and evasives and things like that. Unless you're spending your time removing the status effects, which usually is not the most effective way to play Vampire Lord, right? Let's see. So counterplay you should expect. So if you're playing her, opponents will try to rush you down early before your blood power matters. Smart players are going to save removal to hit blood power at the worst possible moment, or snipe bleed stacks at 2 to deny your blood power gain. And then not this time as brutal against your big heal turn because it shrinks the damage, which shrinks your heal value that you've been banking on as well. So the Vampire Lord, the mantra is bank the blood power, spend the blood power with purpose, use glamour to keep safe pressure, and then when the window opens, rip the game open with one disgusting swing turn where you're stealing a bunch of health. Let's do a couple of rolls. So let's just imagine we're starting the game off here. And again, I would typically go for Sanguiomancy, which it looks like we're actually rolling into here pretty easily. We also have the small, but we're going to go Sanguiomancy where we would heal 2, and then we would gain 3 blood powers, which is fantastic. Just to see what would happen on our defense, we would inflict them with a bleed and steal a health, which is great. Comes back over to us. We now have 3 blood powers, and this is where, if we found this, we're going to start spamming it. But we can start getting a little frisky. If their defense is strong, we're going to go undefendable. If I want to get another bleed on them, I may want to go here, or I may want to find Rend, or I may want to look for options to do things. But let's roll and see what happens. So this is one where I'm not going to go Sanguiomancy, but I may take Glamour. And let's just say Glamour. So I would gain a CP, I would gain a Mesmerize, and then I would spend a blood power to do 7 undefendable damage, right? And that's really the cycling and how you would operate Vampire Lord. So appreciate you watching. Don't be afraid to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Welcome back to Undefendable. We're going to be doing Play Like a Pro guide for the Cursed Pirate. The Cursed Pirate is one of the most complete and flexible characters in Dice Throne. She does not use upgrades. Instead, she flips her board, upgrading everything at once at the cost of 4 health points per upkeep. That single mechanic defines her entire identity. She has multiple variable game plans, massive burst damage potential, strong control, top-tier economy, and one of the best defensive roles in the game. If you enjoy card-driven wins, flexible lines, and punishing mistakes, Cursed Pirate is elite and, in my opinion, broken. Let's go over her leaflet. Cursed Doubloon, receive 1 damage in upkeep if you put it on your opponent. But this is also one that sticks on you, and then at the end of your turn you remove them, and then when you run out of the Cursed Doubloons, that's when you would flip over to the Cursed Pirate side, right? These are persistent tokens. Whenever the pirate would gain a Cursed Doubloon, she may not choose not to. Cursed Doubloons tokens may stack up to 5x on the pirate and up to 3x on anyone else, right? So on your opponent, they take 1 damage per upkeep. On you, they're just there to prevent you from flipping your board. Powder Keg, this is kind of like the Black Widow's Time Bomb. You put it on your opponent, they would roll. On a 1 or 2, they receive 3 damage and it blows up. On a 6, it passes back to you, and then you have to deal with it. However, if it's on your opponent and you do an ability that would add another one, the one that's on them would blow up, hitting them for 3, and then they would get the new one that you put onto them. Wither is on your, if it's on your opponent, it reduces that damage by 1. So ultimately, they're always going to be doing 1 less damage while Wither is on them, and it is persistent. It does not go away. And then Parlay, another broken token. Deal no damage when attacking. A player afflicted with Parlay may not deal any damage as a result of their offensive roll phase. At the conclusion of the roll phase, remove this token. So if you inflict your opponent with a Parlay and they can't get rid of it, basically at the end of their offensive roll phase, if they didn't get rid of it, that results in nothing, which is just absolutely bonkers. Okay, so the Cursed Pirate is going to start the game with, I believe it's 3. Yeah, 3 Cursed Doubloons on, I just wanted to make sure, on her board. And then at the conclusion, let's get this a little bit more straight, a little bit more focused. There you go. At the conclusion of your turn, you're going to remove a Cursed Doubloon. And then if you don't have any Cursed Doubloons, that you can remove at the end of your turn, flip your hero board over for the remainder of the game. Let's just go breeze through this because there is going to be a flip side to this. So the Cutlass Strike is going to be the basic. X marks the spots and walk the plank are typically your bread and butter. Your small and large straights are damage with powder kegs. Shiver Me Timbers if you want to flip immediately or deal undefendable damage. Mini ult, and then her defense is just absolutely busted. You roll 4, and then you just do all of this. It's very, very strong. If your opponent can't deal undefendable damage, you're likely going to win the game just because your defense is that good. And then Pirate's Touch. This is your ultimate. Cursed Doubloons, Parlays, Powder Kegs, and Damage. Now, let's go ahead and flip over to the Cursed Pirate himself, or herself, I should say. And this is really just a lot of what you were seeing. However, now there's additional stuff because during your upkeep phase, you receive 4 damage. So you're getting stronger abilities, but you're going to be receiving 4 damage during your upkeep phase. So you're on a ticking time clock here. So by flipping, you have a little bit more of a deadline to get things done because you're going to die slowly over time. Your defense is upgraded. All of your attacks are upgraded. Most of them are going to add Wither or some sort of damage opportunity, a little bit more damage, a little bit more powder keg opportunities and things like that. So, but this is what happens. So by doing this, the Cursed Pirate doesn't actually have any upgrade cards. All of her cards are going to be unique cards because she doesn't upgrade any of her abilities. So let's talk about her unique cards really quickly. All right, so going over these, I mean, ultimately all of these are relatively strong cards. Some of them are situational, but Ransom, select one of your opponent's dice. They must pay 2 CP or else re-roll that die, so it's just another helping hand in your deck. Steal a CP from your chosen opponent for 0 CP, absolutely crazy. You're going to starve them out, control them down, and just win the game. Batten Down is an interesting one. This is one where, like, once you've built up a lot of CP, you spend a lot of cards, and then you play this card. If you have any cards, discard them, then draw 4. So if you can have this be your last card in your hand and play it, you would basically draw 4 cards for 4 CP, which is really, really strong, but does take some setup and time to do. But you're generally going to have a lot of CP playing the Cursed Pirate because she's going to steal a lot and gain a lot from her abilities. Pirate's Life, gain a Cursed Doubloon. If your board has been flipped, heal 3 instead. So a lot of the game is built around you sustaining your time either on the pirate before flipping, and this is just a way to get that. If you've already flipped, you heal 3. Swashbuckler, really good roll modifier, draw 2 or deal 2 or inflict a keg, really strong for 2 CP. High Stakes, a lot of the times you're going to hit this, rolling 2, you're going to hit this, draw 2, gain 2 CP. So basically for 2 CP, you get to draw 2, light it up, inflict a powder keg, really strong. Yo-ho, inflict a powder keg, but your opponent can potentially do nothing if they roll it correctly, or they would get a wither as well. Scurvy is okay. You know, if you need CP, you could sell it because you have to take damage to inflict wither, but early on can be really strong if your opponent doesn't have a way to get rid of it. Truce is absolutely busted. You just inflict parlay on them, which is nuts. Run you through, really strong attack modifier. Cursed cards, just more draw, because that's what she needs for 0 CP and as an instant action. Crow's Nest, you do a lot of stuff. Shark Bait, add 2 damage, and then Feed the Fish, inflict powder kegs on up to 3 different opponents. So this is one you generally would sell, unless you really had to play it. But ultimately, yeah, she's going to gain a lot of CP and draw a lot of cards, and you're trying to just kind of set your turns up to make sure that these cards are going to be the most valuable at the right time, because she's going to be able to control a lot of the game with what she can do. So, general game plan when playing the Cursed Pirate. I would say there's kind of like slightly 3 different ways. The Control Pirate, if you want to play more of a control style game, you're going to do Walk the Plank and X marks the spot a lot. Because Walk the Plank, you get to steal CP or have your opponent discard a card. And then X marks the spot. Generally, you're going to stay in the game with Cursed Doubloons by getting those back on the board and drawing more cards to be able to get them off of things and get the right cards you need. You're going to build your hand and build your CP with these two abilities, which is really strong, and you're going to limit your opponent's options. And this also allows you to delay flipping as long as possible by getting those cursed doubloons. And then you finish with parlays and ultimates and power kegs to really knock them off their seats. A more balanced pirate is just going to generate resources early. You're going to fish for powder kegs. You're going to play these when they come or when you need them or when you want to starve them. And then you're going to really set up for a single massive damage turn with the cards you get. And then try to flip mid to late game to get the most value. I would say the balanced pirate tends to be the most common and most flexible plan. And then the last type of cursed pirate, I would say, is the aggressive early flip pirate. This is one where you're chasing straights and keg applications, right, to do the most damage. If you can get Shiver Me Timbers and flip early, you can just race hard to offset upkeep damage, right? So if you get this, you deal 7 undefendable and you flip, and then you're just trying to do as much damage as you can as quickly as possible because that other side of this board is just that strong. But only do this if you have keg cards or dice manipulation in your hand, and you can reliably push high damage per roll immediately, right? The flip timing of Cursed Pirate is critical because you can literally lose games if you time this incorrectly. So make sure that you have that. Make sure you maybe have Truce so you can inflict parlay on them at an opportune moment so you're not taking additional damage you don't need to take. Counterplay, if your opponent's going to try and remove the powder kegs. If you're playing against Cursed Pirate, you're waiting for that parlay to come up. So you want to hold on to bye-bye or get that out of here or what status effects, because that is going to come up 90% of the games, and you need to get that off your board so you don't completely whiff your turn from that parlay. And then you also want to try and avoid the defense, right? Her defense is really, really strong. So if you're playing into her, avoid the defense because that's going to really, really hurt you. They're going to gain a lot of CP. They're going to hit you back. They're going to prevent a lot. Just don't swing into it. It's really strong. Matchup-wise, this is big picture. Cursed Pirate's going to be strong against characters with weak economy. She's going to be strong against characters with without strong undefendable damage. Right, so if you have to swing at the Cursed Pirate without undefendable damage, Cursed Pirate's going to have an advantage. And then anything that's like not an aggro character, so mid-speed characters who just can't rush or stall well, Cursed Pirate's going to be able to do that better. Weak against, I would say, strong, really strong stall heal heroes like Huntress, Monk, Paladin, maybe even Treant, ones that can stall the game out long enough so that you have to flip and then be on that other side and take damage. Maybe even Ninja, undefendable damage, smoke bombs, and things like that. Reliable undefendable damage per roll heroes are going to be strong into Cursed Pirate. And then, long game denial strategies. So the Pirate is just going to dominate the mid game. You either have to beat her fast or first force her to kill herself by flipping and taking damage on the other side of the board. So, final takeaway, Cursed Pirate is not about perfection. She is about pressure, leverage, and punishment. If your opponent hesitates, hoards resources, or plays it safe, you can take everything from them and end the game in one turn. So let's do a couple of quick rolls just so you can kind of see it. So again, I generally, these are usually my bread and butter. Unless like a straight is just screaming at me, most of the time I'm going for these abilities. They tend to come up pretty frequently, right? There we go. X marks the spot, so I would gain a CP, and then I would roll 3 dice. And right there, look at that. I gained 2 cursed doubloons and did 2 undefendable damage. And then at the end of my turn, I'm going to remove that, right? So now I've just stalled the game a little bit longer from me flipping, which in certain matchups is exactly what we want to do. So let's do another roll here. And then again, would you look at that? All right, so now this one's a little bit unique, right? We have X marks the spot, but I already have the doubloons. So now I kind of want to push towards walk the plank. I probably would have kept the 5 there, actually. So 3, 4, 5, 6, I have this if I want to, but if I want to go with walk the plank, I'm going to steal a CP from my opponent and then deal 7 damage. End of my turn, I'm going to remove the cursed doubloon. Let's go ahead and roll again. And this is, again, another one where maybe I go more into the walk the plank strategy. And we go ahead and get Walk the Plank, where we're going to have them discard or steal a CP and then deal 7 damage, remove a doubloon. And now my doubloons are getting kind of low. Oh no, well maybe I'm at a point where I want to go Shiver Me Timbers and I have the right dice mods and I get the right things. All right, Black Spot. We're going to do Parlay. We're going to gain a Cursed Doubloon, 7 undefendable, so on and so forth. So, yeah, so I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much. For sticking it out, and don't be afraid to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Well, that is it for the Battle Chest for Season 2. Again, we went over Gunslinger, Samurai, Tactician, Huntress, Cursed Pirate, Artificer, Seraph, and the Vampire Lord. Really appreciate you guys sticking around, watching the whole video. Hopefully this was helpful. Please, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'm trying to get to that magic number of 1,000, so maybe I can start getting a little bit of monetization for these, but anything you guys can do to support the page and channel is really helpful, and hopefully this helped you guys win your next tournament. I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you so much.